Well, let's stop. The communal Chakatas offering and the Ola offerings, the individual Chakatas offering, the Ashram offering of the Nazir, and the Ashram offering of the Mitzvah are acceptable from day 30 and on, and even on day 30. But if you offer them on the eighth day, they are acceptable. Vowed offerings and donated offerings are for the firstborn, the animal tithe, and the Pesach offering are eligible. Are eligible from day 8 and on, and even on the eighth day. Reb Eliezer says a pregnant chatas cow is valid, but the Chachamim say invalid. Reb Eliezer says it may not be purchased from idol worshippers, but the Chachamim say validated. And not only this, but regarding all sacrificial offerings, both communal and individual, all sacrificial offerings may be brought from within the land and from outside the land, from the new crop and from the old, except for the Oma and the 2 loaves, which maybe only come from the new crop and from the land. Okay. A cow whose horns or hooves are black, one should cut them off. The eyeball and the teeth and the tongue do not invalidate the cow. A dwarf cow is valid. And if a wart cow and one, if it had a wart and one cut it off, the Yudah invalidates the cow. Reb Shimon says any place that the wart was removed and did not give to red hair in its place, the cow is disqualified. Okay.
Okay. All right. Yotze dofin ve'esnan umachir. Okay, so these are things. So we're now comparing the Parah Aduma to other korbanos, right? Korbanos that are brought in the Beis Mikdash. Obviously, the Parah itself is not brought in the Mikdash, so it's not really a korban, but it has a lot of similarities to animals that are brought as korbanot. So, for example, if it's born by cesarean section, it's pasul. Esnan, the Esnan Zona is the hire of a harlot. So if it was paid over to, if it was used as payment to a prostitute, it's just like any other korban, not allowed. Machir kelev, if it was bartered for a dog, also. Okay, pasul. Rabbi Eliezer machshir, but Rabbi Eliezer says these cases over here are all cases of where it's only a problem for the mizbeach. Okay, these things may not be brought in the temple. Okay, but and so the Parah Aduma doesn't come into the Beis Hamikdash, so it's not a pasul in itself. Okay, halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Eliezer. Kol hamumim haposlim b'mukdashim poslim b'para. So all of the mumim, all the different blemishes will also blemish the para. Rachav aleha, if he rode on it, nishan aleha, or he leaned on it, nislab biznava, or he hung something by its tail. Avar ba esanahar, or he went across a river and used it to help him to get across. Kipel aleha es mosera, or he had a rope and he folded it up and laid it on the cow's back. Nasan taliso aleha, or he put his cloak on top of it. Psula, he's now used it for his own purposes, and therefore it cannot be used for a Parah Aduma anymore. Aval, if he tied it up by a rope to lead it, asala sandal bishvil shelo tachlik, or he made a shoe for it so that it shouldn't slip. Paras taliso aleha mipnei hazvuvim, or he put his cloak on top of it to protect it from the flies. Kshera, those are all okay. Why? Your general rule is kol shehu letzorka kshera letzorch acher psula. If whatever he's doing is for the sake of caring for the cow, then it's legit. If he's doing it, if he's using the cow for his own purposes or for any other purposes, that apostles it from being a Parah Aduma. Shachan aleha off kshera. The bird lands on its back. Who cares? Nobody wants a bird perching on their cow's back. It doesn't help. Okay. Letzorech acher psula. But if it's sorry, I went to the wrong place. Allah aleha zachar. But if a male mounted it, then immediately it becomes pasul. Okay, even if it didn't conceive from it, because because in general, even if in this specific case, the owner didn't want was unhappy about it because it's now going to pasul his Parah Aduma.
Right.
that's the thing, is that if it's only because of that rule, it's kind of a circular argument. Because if you say, oh, I see you're unhappy because it's made your paradoma pasul, therefore it's okay if the male mounted it and you weren't happy, and he says, oh, okay, Baruch Hashem, now I'm not so unhappy about it anymore. Oh, in that case, then your paradoma is pasul. Okay, so it's just we don't use the paradoma itself as an argument as to why he's unhappy. If like a bird landing on his cow's back doesn't make him happy, but in general, farmers are happy when the males mount the females because it means they're going to get more flocks, more animals. So that will puzzle it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer im he'elahu psula ve'im me'atzmo kshera. He's a little okay. So Rabbi Yehuda, if you recall, we've had this discussion lots of times, that Rabbi Yehuda is the action guy. Okay, he looks at outcomes. He looks at what people physically do in order to achieve something. He doesn't. He's not interested in, he doesn't care about the kavanah. He wants to see that somebody actually put it in action. So if the farmer didn't ask the male to jump on top there, then why are we making a fuss? But if he actually, G'd up the male and said, "Yeah, go and mount the female," then that shows that he wanted to. And his counterpart is Rabbi Shimon, who goes entirely after intention. Now, we've seen, we know these examples of when they're arguing about the Romans and saying, "Oh, look how Rabbi Yehuda says, look what the Romans have done. They've done all these wonderful things. They've built aqueducts and marketplaces and all these beautiful things." So he's very happy with the Romans, and Rabbi Shimon is looking at the kavanah.
Right.
And he said they're awful. They did it because they wanted this, because they wanted that, and okay. Anyway, that's another case where Rabbi Yehuda's action orientation comes out. If it had two hairs that weren't red, so black or white, even inside one follicle, that is called pasul. It's because it's got to be 100% red. Rabbi Yehuda Omer afilu besoch kos echad hayu besoch shtei kosos v'hem ochichos zo psula. If they're coming out of one follicle, that's still okay, says Rabbi Yehuda. We just did that's right. Hold on, wait, what's the I might be just getting this wrong over here. So I was just looking at Kahati's commentary. Afilu besoch kos echad. It says Kahati kos saras and behema monachos al guf igolim kein taltalim v'chein agul nikra kos v'omer Rabbi Yehuda shafilu shtei hasaras hashcharos o lavanas af she'enan beguma as psulos. Oh, so he's making a stringency over here. So apparently the Tanna Kama would not pass it if it was because of kos echad. Sorry, beg your pardon. The difference is the subtlety is the guma versus the kos. What is your translation of guma and kos? So what does the first Tanna say?
It starts off with, if it had two black or white hairs inside one pore, it's invalidated. The Yehuda said even one kos, they were inside two koses and they were aligned one with the other. It's invalidated.
Mm-hmm. Right. So kos, even if they're not inside the same guma. So it's like I think it's trying to get the subtlety between the two of them. The kos versus the guma. So let me just open up my English Kati again. Okay. So all the hairs of the animal line that's on its body, like in circlets, like curls, each circlet is called a kos. So that's bigger than a guma. The guma is a pore, okay, and the kos is a circlet, so that's bigger. So even if it's within a single kos, That's oh, interesting. Although, so Kahati is saying that they're actually synonymous, but one should follow the language of his teacher. And Rabbi Yehuda's teacher called a poor kos. Rabbi Yehuda teaches additionally that if they were within two kosos, each hair in a different kos, each testifying to the other, in other words, demonstrating that they have grown as one, then they join and match each other, and the cow is unfit. Okay, Rabbi Akiva Omer, afilu arba, afilu chamesh v'hein mefuzaros yitlosh. If you have one or 4 or 5 random red non-red hairs scattered around the animal's body, as long as each one is isolated, just go in and pluck it out.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about a single hair. If there are 2 in one space, then you have to remove it. Rabbi Eliezer Omer afilu chamishim. I mean, okay, let's just take whatever number you want. You can take 50 hairs from all around the animal, just go with the tweezers, pull it out, and you're fine. Rabbi Yeshua ben Beseir Omer afilu achas berosha v'achas beznava psula. So he's machmir over here. He says that even if there's one on its head and one on its tail, that's 2 non-red hairs and it's puzzle. Hayuba shtei saros. If it had 2 hairs, ikaran mashchir v'roshan madim. So the bottom is black, the root is black, and the top is red. Ikaran madim v'roshan mashchir, or vice versa. Hakol holech achar hanireh. Everything goes according to appearance. So in other words, ignore the root. Just look at what's in the end and what's the overall effect of what the animal looks like. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Chachamim omrim achar ikar. Nope. Punkt verkehrt, Chachamim. You go after the root. And we had the same kind of thing with the Nagaim when we're looking at the hair to see if it's a white hair, if it's white at the base or white at the ends. Okay, and
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's go back to Nagaim.
Okay. Yud Gimel Hak Ches.
Yes.
If a tall person put his head and most of his body into the tummy house, it becomes tummy. If a tummy person puts his head and most of his body into the tahor house, it makes him tummy. A tahor garment of which 3 by 3 fingerprints were put into a tummy house becomes tummy. If someone put an oblong-sized piece of a tummy garment into a tahor house, the house becomes tummy. If someone enters an afflicted house with his garments on his shoulder and his sandals and rings in his hands, he and they become tummy immediately. However, if he is wearing the garments, the sandals are on his feet, and the rings are on his fingers, he becomes tummy immediately. But the garments, sandals, and rings remain a tahor until he says it takes enough time to eat a half a loaf of wheat bread rather than barley bread, while reclining and eating it with a condiment. Someone stood inside an afflicted house and extended his hand outside with his rings on his fingers. If he remained long enough to eat the half loaf, the rings become tummy. Someone who was standing outside and extended his hand inside an afflicted house with his rings on his fingers, the Yehuda renders him tummy immediately, but the comment say until he remains long enough to eat a half loaf. And they said to Rabbi Yehuda, when his entire body becomes tummy, his clothes do not become tummy until he remains in the house long enough to eat a half loaf. Is it not logical that when he himself has not become tummy, his clothes should not become tummy either until he remains in the house long enough to eat a half a loaf?
Okay.
All right.
And base.
We do not examine the guy in the early morning, nor in the late afternoon, or inside the house, nor on a cloudy day, because what is dull appears bright. Nor do we examine the garment in the middle of the day, because what appears bright appears dull. When do we examine? During the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th, 8th, and 9th hours. These are the words of Meir, and Rabbi Yehuda says during the 4th, 5th, 8th, and 9th hours. A Kohen who was blind in one eye and whose vision is weak may not examine a Goyim because the Torah states, as far as the eyes of the Kohen can see. We do not make new windows in a dark house in order to examine its nega. How is a nega examined? A man examined in the position of someone hoeing and someone picking olives. A woman examined in the position of someone shaping dough and someone nursing a child, and someone who is weaving on a standing loom who exposes her underarm for her right arm. Rabbi Yehuda says also she assumes the position of someone who is spinning linen for her left arm. Just as he examined for his nega, so is he viewed for his shaving.
Okay.
Back to
Elim.
the base gimel. A cow born by cesarean section and a hard tire.
No.
What did I do? Caleb, oh, I'm going back. I'm sorry. Okay, we just
Yeah.
did that. Okay. Okay. Yud Zion. The measure of a skin bottle to lose its tumor is a hole the size of balls of warp thread. Although it cannot hold balls of warp thread, and nevertheless, since it can hold balls of weft thread, it is tummy. Concerning a dish holder, although it cannot hold dishes, nonetheless, since it can hold planets, it's tummy. Concerning a chamber pot, although it can no longer hold liquids, nonetheless, it can still hold excrement, it is still tummy. But Gamil rules the Torah, since people do not keep it. The measures of bread baskets to lose their tumor is a hole the size of loaves of bread. Concerning apiferous baskets, if one made would reach for them from the bottom to the top for support their Torah. If one made a rim of any kind for it, it's susceptible to becoming tummy. I'm coming to Tome, right? Reb Shimon says if it cannot be lifted up by its rim, it is not accessible to Tuma. And the pomegranates of which the rabbi spoke are three attached to one another. Reb Shimon ben Gamil says concerning the sea or sifter, a hole through which a pomegranate would fall when one takes it and extends it, and concerning a basket, a hole through which a pomegranate would fall when one slings it behind him. Concerning all the utensils that can hold a pomegranate, such as a quarter cov measure, half of a quarter cov measure, and small surfaces, their measure is to lose the tumor is when the greater part of them is perforated. These are the words of Rav Meir. Shimon says the size of olives, if they were broken, their measure to lose their tumor is a hole the size of an olive, and if they wore away, their measure to lose their tumor is any amount. Yeah. And
Zvachim.
okay, base olive. Any sacrifice whose blood was received by a non-Kohen or by an Onan or a Tevel Yom, or one who lacks vestments, or one who lacks atonement, or one whose hands and feet have been washed, or who is uncircumcised, or who is tummy, or with one who is sitting or standing upon utensils, or an animal, or a colleague's feet is invalid. If one received the blood with his left hand, he invalidates it, but Reb Shimon validates. If it's spilled on the floor and he got it up and it's invalid. If he applied it on the ramp but not opposite the altar's base, or if he applied that which should be applied to the lower part of the altar above, or that which should be applied to the upper part below, or that which would be applied within the sanctuary on the outside, or that which would be applied on the outside when within the sanctuary, it's invalid. But no, it bears no charis. If one slaughters a sacrifice to throw its blood outside or part of the blood outside to burn its sacrificial parts outside or part of the sacrificial parts outside, to eat its meat outside, to eat an olive's volume of its meat outside, or to eat an olive's volume of the hide of the tail outside, it's invalid. Then it bears no charis. To throw its blood tomorrow, or part of the blood tomorrow, to burn its sacrificial parts tomorrow, or part of the sacrificial parts tomorrow, to eat its meat tomorrow, but to eat an olive volume of meat tomorrow, to eat an olive volume of the skin of a sheep's tail is pigel, and what is allowed with the charis. This is the rule. Anyone who slaughters, receives, conveys, or throws the blood with the intent to eat something which is meant to be eaten, or to burn upon the altar something which is meant to be burnt, if it's outside the place, it's invalid, but it bears no charis. If beyond its time it is pigel, and one beyond this time it's pigel, and one is allowed with the charis over it, provided that the part which makes it permissible is offered as required.
Okay.
Okay.
Sibus.
So, okay. Hey, Dalit. If one consecrated his wife's hand to work, she may nevertheless work and eat. If he consecrated the surplus, Rebbeinu says it is consecrated. Rabbi Yochanan says Sandler says it is not consecrated. These are the kinds of work that a woman must do for her husband. She must grind, bake, wash, cook, nurse her child, make his bed, and work with wool. If she brought him one maidservant, she need neither grind, bake, or wash. If she brought in two, you need to cook nor nurse her child. Three, she neither makes his bed nor work with wool. Four, she may sit in an easy chair. Reb Eliezer says even if she brought him 100 maidservants, he should compel her to work with wool, for idleness brings unchastity. Reb Shimon ben Gamil says even if one pronounces a vow upon his wife not to do any work, he must divorce her and give her ketubah, for idleness brings to insanity. If one pronounces a vow on his wife not to have relations, Beis Shammai says 2 weeks. Beis Hillel says 1 week. Students may leave for Torah study without permission. For 30 days, labor is 1 week. Conjugal rights stated in the Torah are as follows: men of leisure every day, labors twice a week, donkey drivers once a week, camel drivers once in 30 days, sailors once in 6 months. These are the words of Reb Eliezer. If a woman, that was it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Trumos. Okay. A wine strain is forbidden because it's uncovered. Then the Chamia permits this. If a doubt of uncleanness arose concerning a jar of truma, Reb Eliezer says if it was lying in an exposed place, he should put it in a hidden place. If it was uncovered, he should cover it. But Reb Yeshua said if it lay in a hidden place, he should put it in an exposed place. And if it was converted, if it was converted, he should uncover it. But Gamil says, let him do it, do nothing about nothing. Let him do nothing about new about it. If a jar was broken in the upper parts of the press, and the lower part is unclean, Reb Eliezer and Reb Yeshua agree that if he can save from one clean revi'it, he should save it. But if not, Reb Eliezer says, let it descend and become unclean, and let him not make unclean with his hands. Okay, that was it.
Hell, I think you're not finished.
Was it one more?
Yeah, it's 11. Yeah.
Okay. So too, if a jar of oil was upset, the Rebbe Eliezer and Rebbe Yeshua agree that if it can save from one clean to reveal it, you should save it. But if you're not, Rebbe Eliezer says let it descend and be absorbed, but let him not gather it up with his hands. One more.
It's not finished. You haven't finished that Mishnah.
It says he should save it, but if not, Rebbe Eliezer says let it descend and be absorbed, but not let him gather it up with his hands. That's the end I have here.
But then you go into Mishnah 11. I think you're going in the wrong direction in your Mishnah because it's a different edition.
I was going to Mishnah 11. Right. I started at 8.
No, you started at 9.
No, I actually started in the wrong place. I started
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do 11.
11. Regarding both this and that of Reb Shua said, this is not the truma which I am hidden, I am hidden not to render unclean, only which I may not eat, and which I may not render unclean. If it was a passing from one place to another with loaves of truma in his hands, and if Don Jew said to him, give me one and I shall render it unclean, and if not, I shall render it all unclean. If Eliot says, let him render all unclean, and let him not to give him one to render unclean, Reb Shua says, let him place one before him on a stone. Okay, now we got it. Okay. What was the difference between the bread in the first mission that we had? So about it had to be it couldn't be barley bread. I don't think it was. There was a reason for that.
Because it depends on how long we're trying to measure a time. We're measuring time in bread. Okay. Okay. Now, how long does it take you to eat that bread? So it depends what kind of flour is the bread. Is it coarse? Is it smooth? Does it go down easily? Does it not? So it's the kind that goes down smoothly to minimum, which is a chumra in the time. So it makes the time shorter.
Okay, good. Have a great job. I'll see you Sunday.
Bye bye.